August 14th, 1927. The wind howls like a wounded beast, rattling windows and whispering through the cracks of old, forgotten buildings. Across the frozen tundra and into bustling cities, a bitter cold sweeps the world, unnatural in its intensity, relentless in its spread. Ships vanish beneath sheets of ice in temperate waters. Entire villages are found silent and empty, their inhabitants frozen where they stood, their eyes wide in silent terror. From the remote Arctic wastes comes word of unnatural storms, hurricanes of snow and sleet that swirl without end. Expedition teams have gone north, drawn by strange lights and whispered legends, only to disappear into the white void. Survivors speak in trembling voices of a tall, gaunt figure, its red eyes burning through the blizzard, a presence both ancient and merciless. The legends name him Ithaqua, the Windwalker. A god of frost and hunger, he prowls the desolate snows, dragging the unwary into his eternal storm. As his influence spreads, the world grows colder, harsher. Strange cults gather in forgotten towns, chanting to the bitter winds. The barriers between worlds weaken as the icy grasp of the Old One reaches farther south each night. The omens are clear. Unless the threat is stopped, all of humanity will be consumed in endless winter.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club. My name is Keith, and tonight we're going to be playing Eldritch Horror. We'll be facing off 4 random characters against the great old one, Ithaqua. Let's begin by taking a closer look at Ithaqua the Windwalker. The Doom track is going to start at 13, so it gives us a little bit of time at least. Now, Ithaqua has a reckoning effect. It says each investigator gains a hypothermia condition unless he spends 1 focus. So it's going to be very important for us to make sure that our characters have reserved focus tokens for that purpose. When 3 mysteries have been solved, the investigators will win the game. And then when Ithaqua awakens, we'll flip the sheet and resolve the Ithaqua awakens effect on the back. Now during stage 1, we're going to have 2 yellow and 2 blue cards in that first section of 4 cards. So we've got a 50-50 chance of drawing one of those ongoing rumor cards, which is going to be tough. Now what I've done is during the setup of the game, I've removed these very difficult rumor cards from the draw. In my opinion, these are just could be potentially game changers if one of these gets drawn real early in the game. So I've decided to remove these. The difficult ones are listed with these tentacles on the sides of the cards. I've left in all the other cards into the mystery deck, but I've taken these out, so that will make it for a little bit easier game for us. So we know from the setup card for Ithaqua that we're going to have 2 yellow cards coming out, and those will be 2 reckoning effects. 2 out of the first 4 turns will be reckoning effects. So we have to make sure right out of the gates that our characters are going to be prepared to fight against that hypothermia condition. So we have to make sure that they're going to have focus tokens. There's no doubt about that. Now his cultists are also potentially a problem. If we lose health from the strength test, the cold chills us to the bone, and we're going to gain a hypothermia condition from that. So we're going to need, before we would confront any of these cultists, we need to make sure we've got our combat strength levels up high enough where we're not going to be damaged by these things. They have a damage value of 2, only 1 toughness, which is not bad. Now, as a part of Ithaqua's setup, we are supposed to set aside a Gnafke and the Wendigo. So let's take a look at those creatures and see what we might be up against in the future. All right, the Gnafke says that when the monster is spawned, it's going to move to the Himalayas. It'll be a willpower test with 1 horror, and a strength test -2 with 2 damage. Has a toughness of 3. As a reckoning effect, each investigator on this space loses 1 health. So if that creature does appear, it's going to be at the Himalayas. So we probably want to keep clear of the Himalayas if we can, anticipating that this creature might appear there. Then the Wendigo has a willpower test with a horror level of 1 and a strength test -1 with 3 damaged and 2 toughness. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, roll a die. On a 1 or 2, gain a hunger condition. Okay, so those are some likely monsters that we're going to be facing in the future. So that's kind of the strategy we're going to have to pursue with Ithaqua. We got to make sure we keep focus tokens available to stop him, especially during those stages where we're going to have a lot of reckoning effects. So that'll be an important concept in the game for us. Let's take a look at our investigators and we'll see what their capabilities are. We'll begin with Sister Mary. She's going to be starting in Cape Town, South Africa. She has 5 health and 7 sanity. She has a very strong willpower and observation. She's going to begin the game with holy water, a clue, and a ship ticket. She will be our lead investigator. Her special action allows her to test willpower, and for each success, she or another investigator in her space may discard 1 madness condition. So that's kind of helpful in a way to get rid of madness conditions. Her passive ability is you and other investigators in your space can add 1 to the result of each die rolled as a part of a bane or boon condition effect. So that could also be helpful. Next is Bob Jenkins, the salesman. He's going to begin in London, England. He has 7 health and 5 sanity, and his strongest ability is influence. So maybe we can use him to get some items from the reserve to help us. He's going to begin with a Winchester rifle, which is great. Once per round, he can gain 4 strength during a combat encounter. He also begins with a clue. His active special ability is he can trade any number of item or trinket possessions with another investigator on any space. So that's pretty good. If he does a trade action, he can do it as though that investigator was in his space. His passive ability is when you perform and acquire assets action, he can reduce the value of each card in the reserve by 1 to a minimum of 1. So that's his salesman special ability. That's great. Next is the Private Eye Joe Diamond. Joe Diamond is going to begin the game in San Francisco, California. He begins the game with a .32 Colt Pocket. He has 7 health, 5 sanity. His strongest abilities are observation and influence. His active special ability is he can choose an ally, service, or weapon, and then he can discard 1 asset from the reserve and replace it with 1 random asset from the deck that has the chosen trait. So if we need to get a weapon, as an example, he could declare weapon, and then we would keep drawing from the item deck to replace that card on the reserve, keep drawing until we get a weapon, so that's kind of nice. Joe's got 7 health and 5 sanity, and his best abilities are observation and influence. He has very high observation, which will be good. And finally, we have Wendy Adams, the Urchin. She's going to begin the game in Central Russia in Space 16. She's going to start the game with a talent called Elusive, and she'll also have a clue token. She has 5 strength, or I should say 5 health and 7 sanity, and her best ability is observation. She's definitely lacking in influence, but her observation is very high. Her active action is to gain a trinket of her choice from the reserve or discard pile, so that's good. And then once per round, if she would gain a non-deal condition or an impairment token, she can choose not to gain that condition or impairment token instead, which is great. She's going to be our best character at lore, so therefore if there's any magic happening, she'll probably be the one that would be best suited for that. Our randomly selected prelude card is the Archives. The librarian looks you up and down unenthusiastically. Name? She asks, deadpan. You tell her. She lets out a long, irritating sigh that seems to go on for an eternity as she pulls a key from her desk drawer, all the while never breaking her gaze from you, never blinking. She extends the key towards you. You reach out to take it, uttering a stilted thanks, but she retains her titanic grip on the key. She holds out the palm of her hand and looks at you expectantly. You sigh and reach for your wallet. During this game, if an asset would be placed on a space of the reserve, you may place one random spell from the deck face up on that space instead. Spells in the reserve can be gained as a part of the acquire asset action. Each spell in the reserve has a value of 1. As an additional cost to gain a spell, you must spend 1 sanity. All right, so that is an interesting prelude card. It's going to give us better access to spells. Now we'll take a look at our first mystery, and it is entitled Exploring Hyperborea. All across the northern hemisphere, people have said to have visions of an ancient civilization. The visions are strongest in Greenland, where the cities of Hyperborea are cast into reality. When this card enters play, place a mystery token on Space 9. As an encounter, an investigator on Space 9 may travel through the veil between worlds and explore the ancient continent of Hyperborea. He draws and resolves an Exploring Hyperborea special encounter. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to half the number of investigators, solve the mystery. So we're going to need 2 clues on that card to solve our first mystery. So as a part of our setup, we've placed that mystery token in Greenland in Space 9, and that's a part of our first mystery. The expedition token happened to be in London, where Bob Jenkins is starting. We also have clues that appeared in Istanbul and the Himalayas. And finally, we have an open gate, a red gate in Arkham, that's guarded by a cultist. So we're ready to begin the first turn, and Sister Mary in Cape Town, South Africa will begin her turn. All right, before we get started, I realized that I did not show the viewers what is in the reserve. We've got an arcane scroll, enchanted cane, police assistants, and museum director. The police assistants, I think, could be quite useful. We'd be able to get rid of that cultist in Arkham if we can acquire that, and then we wouldn't have to fight that cultist. So I think that's going to be one of my top priorities, that and the enchanted cane. Our best investigator that has the highest influence is Bob Jenkins. He has an influence of 4, and he's got that special ability that he can trade items or trinkets with another investigator in any space. So we might be able to, if he can acquire those items, we can use him to transfer those to characters that need those items, like the enchanted cane in particular. Now, as we learned earlier, Ithaqua has that reckoning effect where if our characters don't have focus tokens, they're going to be taking hypothermia conditions. So we have to make sure that we prevent that. We're going to begin with our lead investigator, Sister Mary. She is currently in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm going to begin by giving her a focus. We'll do a focus action. And then she's going to do a travel action, and she's going to travel to Bombay, India. That'll get her in position to possibly go to the Himalayas for that clue token that is there. So that's going to complete her 2 actions. Next is Bob Jenkins. He's currently in London, and I think we're going to start out with giving him a focus action. Give him a focus token, and then for his second action, he's going to attempt to acquire assets. Okay, Bob Jenkins is going to attempt an acquire assets action. He has an influence of 4, so we'll get 4 dice. Here's the roll. Okay, he's got 2 successes. That's great. He's got 2 successes. And I think he has a special, his passive ability is when he performs an acquire asset action, he can reduce the value of the card in the reserve to a minimum by 1 to a minimum of 1. So what he's going to do is he's going to take the police assistance card. We'll give him that. And he's also going to get the enchanted cane. That'll reduce the cost from 2 down to 1. So total value is 2, 2 successes. He'll take these cards. So the enchanted cane he will keep for the time being. And then we're going to use this police assistance. When you gain this card, immediately discard 1 monster of your choice on any space with a toughness of 2 or less. Then discard the card. Well, we're going to target the cultist that is currently in Arkham. Cultists have a toughness of 1. So we're going to get rid of that cultist. That'll open up the portal that is in Arkham. It'll be free of any monsters now. We'll put that monster back into the monster cup, and that's going to complete Bob Jenkins' actions. All right, next up is Joe Diamond, the private eye. He's currently in San Francisco. What we're going to try to do is eventually get probably Joe Diamond and Bob Jenkins. They're the closest to getting to Greenland, which is where our first mystery is at. So I think what we'll do, Joe Diamond is going to gain focus token. And then we're going to have him take a travel action. He'll move to Chicago. We'll do that. That'll be his 2 actions. And finally, we have the urchin, Wendy Adams. She's in central Russia. She will also take a focus token. And she's going to do a travel action into Istanbul and see if she can acquire that clue token during the encounter phase. That finishes the actions. We'll move on to encounters with Sister Mary. Sister Mary is in Bombay, India, and she is going to take a general city encounter there. And her city encounter reads, at an estate sale, you bid on a box of historians' books. Test influence -1. All right, Sister Mary only has an influence of 2, so she'll be rolling 1 die for the test. Okay, here is her test roll. And she's rolled a 3. That's a failure. We have the option now of either using our clue token or the focus token. Well, we don't want to use the focus. And I don't want to waste a clue token on this. So we'll just accept the result. And it says if you fail, someone takes note of your interest, gain 1 pursuit condition. Okay. And she gains the pursuit condition wanted. You cannot perform acquire asset actions. When you perform a travel action, you may roll die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard the card. During a reckoning, we have to test observation. And if we fail, we'll have to flip the card. So we'll give that to Sister Mary. That will complete her encounter phase. All right, next up is Bob Jenkins. He has the following options. We can take a London encounter. We can take a random city encounter or the expedition encounter. And I think he's going to start with the expedition encounter. And the expedition encounter reads, London, an ancient threat, has taken root in Fleet River, a subterranean waterway that has been bricked up for nearly 200 years. You try to convince the city officials to open the chamber. Test influence. Well, Bob Jenkins has an influence of 4. That is great, so we'll have him make the test. And here's Jenkins' influence test. He's got 2 successes. That is awesome. So we're going to read the success portion of the card, and it says, you trade a favor for access to the sealed area. Gain 1 task unique asset. All right. And the task unique asset is turning the tide. At the end of the Mythos phase, if Doom advanced this round, or if the Ancient One has awoken, you may spend clues equal to half the number of investigators to flip the card. Okay, we'll give that to Bob Jenkins. And then continuing on with the success, it says you search the murky river. Test observation. Okay, Bob has an observation of 2. So we'll have him make an observation test with 2 dice. He's done it. He's got 2 successes. That is awesome. If you pass, you find a vile statue and destroy it. Advance the active mystery by 1. That is great. So to advance the active mystery, we can draw a clue token and place it on that card. Now we're only going to need 1 more clue to solve that exploring Hyperborea. So we're going to place a randomly drawn clue token on that mystery. We're doing all right. Examining the expedition deck, we find out that the expedition now moves to Arkham. So we'll place it in Arkham. All right, we move on now to Joe Diamond. He's currently in Chicago, Illinois, and he's going to be taking a generic city encounter. And that city encounter reads, you see a street magician use real magic in his act. Gain 1 glamour spell. All right. He gains the glamour spell Markings of Isis. Gain +1 to all skills. Once per round, you may re-roll 1 die when resolving a test. During a reckoning, we have to test lore -1 and then flip the card. Okay. We'll continue reading, and it says, during his show, he locks you in a safe. We have to test willpower -1. Okay. Joe Diamond has a willpower of 2. So our dice pool is going to be 2 for willpower, -1 for the test, +1 for the Markings of Isis. So we've got 2 dice to use for the test. Let's see if he can pass this. And he's done it. He's got a 5. Let's see what the pass condition is. If you pass, you stay calm and emerge to thunderous applause. Recover 2 sanity. Well, he hasn't spent any sanity, but at least we've prevented taking a paranoia condition. So that's great. And now we move on to Istanbul, Turkey. Wendy Adams is going to attempt a token encounter, and she's going to attempt to get that clue. So we'll pull a clue card and see what she's got to do. All right, Istanbul is a city, so we'll read the city portion. It says, in your dreams, you are a feral creature that hungers for human flesh. Test willpower -1. Okay, her willpower is a 3. So she'll have 2 dice available for the test. Here we go. She's rolled two successes, a 6 and a 5. This is great. And we'll continue reading. If you pass, you manage to control your urges and explore the ancient dreamlands. Gain this clue and improve observation. Outstanding. So Wendy is going to gain another clue token, and we get to improve her observation by 1. She's got an observation level of 5 now. That is outstanding. So far we're doing all right, and that's going to complete our encounter phase. We'll move on now to the Mythos phase. All right, our lead investigator, Sister Mary, she's in Bombay, and she's going to be resolving the Mythos card. All right, the Mythos card is revealed to be, did we make it? Okay, we're going to start out with a movement on the Omen track. All right, so our Omen track will advance 1 to clockwise, and that's a blue star pattern. We have no blue gates on the board, so there's no movement to the Doom track. Okay, returning to the Mythos card, our next step is to resolve the Reckoning effects, and we do those in order. First step is we'll check for any monsters that have Reckoning effects. There are no monsters on the board. Next is the Ancient One, and looking at Ithaqua's card, it says each investigator gains a hypothermia condition unless he spends a focus. All of the characters have focus tokens. They will spend those to avoid the hypothermia. Next step would be if there are any active Mythos cards. There are not. We'll move on to the last one, and that's possessions and conditions. All right, Sister Mary has that wanted condition that she picked up. So during the reckoning phase, we have to test observation, and if we fail, we have to flip the card. So she's going to get 3 dice for this. Here's the roll. And she's passed it. She's got a 6, so that one is not going to activate. The only other character that has a reckoning effect is Joe Diamond with his Markings of Isis spell. All right, Joe Diamond's Markings of Isis says that during a reckoning we have to test lore -1 and then flip the card. Well, his lore is only a 2. I'm assuming that this spell is still active though, because it says gain 1 to all skills. So that would give him a 3 lore -1. He'll be rolling 2 dice for the test. Here's the roll. He has 1 success. So we'll flip the card and see what happens with 1 success. That says, resolve the effect based on your result. 0 to 2. The markings burn your flesh and tear at your mind. Lose a health and a sanity unless you discard the card. Well, I think it's worth it for him to keep it. So I will discard a health and sanity. That'll move his health down to 6 and sanity down to 4. I think I might have, oh, here's the other one, okay. All right, so he has 6 health and 4 sanity, and then we get to keep the card. All right. All right, that completes the reckoning step. Next is we're going to spawn a gate. So we'll draw the top token from the gate stack, and we find out that this one is going to be placed in Tokyo. Okay. So we've got an open gate now in Tokyo, and we're going to draw a monster to see what came through that opened portal. And we've drawn a Chthonian. So let's see, it's got a special activation on there. Let's see what the effects are on that. It says, when this monster is spawned, move it to the heart of Africa. Okay, those are its statistics. 4 toughness. It's pretty decent creature. It's going to be a tough one to get rid of. So we're going to move that to the heart of Africa, and that's where it will be. It does not have a reckoning effect, so we don't have to worry about it if we don't have to go to the heart of Africa. All right, now we're going to read the event, and it says, did we make it? At the end of the ordeal, you have been left on your back, uncertain if you are lucky to be alive or simply doomed to survive. Each investigator rolls a die and resolves the matching effect. All right. Okay, we'll begin with Sister Mary. She is our lead investigator. We'll make the roll and see what happens. She rolls a 4, and that says gain 1 clue. Outstanding. So we'll give Sister Mary a clue token. Now we'll see what happens with Bob Jenkins. Okay, here's the roll for Bob Jenkins. He rolls a 6, and it says he gains a boon condition. Outstanding. His boon condition is righteous. When you perform a focus action, or a rest action, gain 1 focus or recover 1 sanity. That is awesome. That's going to be very helpful for us, especially for the focus. We'll give that to him. And we'll move on now to see what happens with Joe Diamond. All right, we'll make the roll for Joe Diamond. He gets a 6 as well. That is awesome. Gains a boon. His boon is Living Link. Gain 1 to all skills. If you would gain a Bane, you may discard this card instead. During reckoning effects, your destiny awaits. Flip the card. Okay, that's great. So we'll put that into his tableau of cards. And finally, we have to see what happens with Wendy Adams. And here's Wendy Adams's roll. She rolls a 4. And that's going to get her a clue token. Outstanding. So Wendy is going to gain her third clue, and that's going to bring the Mythos phase to a close, and that was a great first turn for our investigators. All right, our last step is to decide if we want to move the lead investigator token from Sister Mary or if we want her to remain in that position. And I think we'll leave the lead investigator with Sister Mary. So we'll continue on with our next action phase, starting with her. All right, I think we're going to try to get Sister Mary to Tokyo, and where she can work on trying to close that gate. So I'm going to begin with her doing a travel action. She's going to travel using that sea lane to Borneo. She's going to spend her ship ticket that she started the game with and continue the move to Tokyo. That's her first action. Her second action is going to be to focus, and we'll give her a focus token. Right now, we know in the first stage that we have a 1 in 3 chance of getting another yellow Mythos card coming out, thus risking our hypothermia condition. We have a 67% chance of having a rumor card. So that's going to complete her activation. We'll move on to Bob Jenkins. All right, Bob Jenkins, the salesman, is in London right now. I think he's going to start out with a focus action. We'll get him a focus token. His second action is going to be using his active action, and that says you may trade any number of item or trinket possessions with another investigator in any space. That's great. So I think what he's going to do is he is going to trade his Winchester rifle, and he's going to give that to Joe Diamond. So we're going to give that to Joe Diamond. That was his second action. That was a component action. That's going to bring Bob Jenkins' turn to a close, and now we'll move on to Joe Diamond himself. All right, Joe is in Chicago, Illinois. He is going to start with a focus action. We'll give him a focus token. And then he's going to do a travel action and move into Arkham. And we'll have him move there. I'll make some space here. And Joe moves into Arkham. We'll give him the focus token. And finally, we move on to Wendy Adams, the urchin. She's in Istanbul. I think she is going to start with a focus action. We don't want to take those hypothermia conditions. And then she's going to do a travel action, taking the rail line to Bombay. That'll get her in position to maybe go to the Himalayas in a future turn. That's going to complete all of the actions. We'll begin our encounter phase, starting with our lead investigator, Sister Mary. She's in Tokyo. She's going to do a token encounter, and she's going to attempt to close that gate in Tokyo. And she draws the card Great Hall of Salerno. The book you are reading describes complex rituals in very abstract terms. You do your best to comprehend the dense material. Test lore. Well, she has a lore value of 2. And incidentally, I forgot, I should have taken care of this. She has that wanted condition, and it says here, whenever you perform a travel action, you may roll 1 die on a 4, 5, or 6, discard the card. So we'll take care of that right now. We'll make the roll for her and see if she can discard that wanted condition. She rolls a 6. So she's managed to discard that wanted condition. That is great. We'll get rid of that. And now getting back to the Great Hall of Salerno, we have to make a lore test. So we're going to have to roll 2 dice. And we'll see if we can pass this. Here is the roll. She did not pass it. She's got a 3 and a 1. So we'd have to read the fail condition. Let me see if there's any type of rerolls we can gather. The only chance would be for her to use one of her clue tokens to re-roll a die. And I guess we could do that. I'm going to spend 1 clue, and we're going to re-roll one of the dice. We'll see if we can get a success. It's a 1 in 3 chance, so not too good. And she's rolled a 4, so we failed. So we'll read the fail condition. It says, the opaque descriptions twist your mind with horrid imagery. Gain a hallucinations condition. In your unsteady state, you are overcome by vertigo as you descend the stairs to leave. You must focus to keep your footing. Test willpower. If you fail, you're going to lose 2 health. Okay, her willpower is a 4. So we've got 4 dice to roll. But first, she's going to be gaining a hallucinations condition. So she gains the hallucinations condition, and that's a madness. It says when you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, you can discard the card. During reckonings, she's going to have to test will, and if she fails, she'll have to flip the card. Okay. All right, now to finish up this Great Hall of Solano, we have to attempt to keep our footing by making a willpower test. We have 4 willpower. Here is her roll. And she's failed. She has failed. So she's going to be taking a loss of 2 health. It's going to move her health down to 3, which is dangerously low. All right, we haven't closed the gate, so that'll end her encounter phase. We'll move on to Bob Jenkins in London. Okay, Bob Jenkins is in London. He's going to encounter the London location, so we'll be drawing a European card and looking at London. And the card reads, Sir Mortimer Wheeler has unearthed a Roman temple at Lydney Park in Gloucester. You believe helping him with his excavations will reveal the secrets of Rome's global influence. You may spend 1 resource to gain 1 clue and spawn a clue. Well, unfortunately, Bob Jenkins does not have any resources, so we won't be able to take advantage of that card. That'll end his encounter phase. All right, next up is Joe Diamond. He's in Arkham, and I think he's going to attempt a token encounter. We'll attempt to close that gate in Arkham. And that card reads, The City of the Great Race. On a high stone shelf, you find books containing the wisdom of both the distant past and far-flung future. Unfortunately, the tomes were written using a series of strange curvilinear symbols. You do your best to translate the alien language. Lore -1. Well, Joe Diamond currently has a lore of 2. He does have the markings of Isis, which is going to give him +1 to skill. So he'll have 3 lore, -1. He'll be rolling 2 dice for the test. Incidentally, I just spotted something. Bob Jenkins in London has this righteous condition. And when he performed his focus action, he should have received an extra focus token. So I'm going to give that to him right now. Okay, so he has 2 focus tokens right now. Now we'll continue on with Joe Diamond. We have to perform a lore -1 test. Joe has a lore of 2. He's got the markings of Isis spell, which gives him +1 to all skills. And he has his living link boon condition, gain +1 to all skills. So in fact, he's got a total of lore 4, -1 for the test. He'll be rolling 3 dice for the test. Here is his test roll. He's done it. He's got 2 successes. So we're going to be reading the success condition. It says you decipher the means to return yourself to your own time. Close the gate. All right, so we've closed the gate in Arkham, which is awesome. And we'll continue reading. After you return, you forgot your time with the great race, but are plagued by strange dreams. Test will. Okay, Joe Diamond has a willpower of 2. Once again, he's going to gain +1 for the markings of Isis and +1 for his living link. All right, so he's going to get a total of 4 dice for the test. Okay, let's see if he can pass this. He's done it. He's got a 6, and that says, if you pass, you explore the visions during your sleep. Gain a clue. All right. It's going to give him his first clue. All right, so we've closed the gate in Arkham. Now, that was a red gate, and when the omen track advances, the next symbol is red. So we've done a good job on limiting the amount of doom that we're going to lose. That's great. That'll finish up with Joe Diamond. We'll move on to Wendy Adams, and she's in Bombay, India. All right, Wendy Adams is going to take a generic city encounter. All right, she draws the card. This idyllic city is invigorating but expensive. Recover 1 health and 1 sanity. Okay, let's see if she needs to do that. Nope, she's at full capacity right now, so she won't gain anything from that. You ask the locals about finding bargains. Test influence. Well, unfortunately, her influence is only a 1. Not great. Okay, we'll have her make the influence roll with 1 die. She rolls a success. It's amazing. She's got a 6. It says if you pass, they provide discounts. Gain 1 resource. Outstanding. So Wendy is going to gain a resource token. All right. All right, that's going to complete our encounter phase. We'll move on to the Mythos phase, and that'll be resolved by Sister Mary in Tokyo. All right, Sister Mary will draw the next Mythos card. We'll see what we get. The card's revealed to be Strange Affliction. We're going to begin with a movement on the omen track. Our omen track will advance clockwise to the red star symbol. Well, there's no red gates on the board. We've managed to close that gate in Arkham, so we won't lose any doom. That's great. Okay, next we'll go into another reckoning phase, and we'll go through that procedure once again. First step is we look for monsters with reckoning effects. There are none. We have a Chthonian in the heart of Africa, but he does not have a reckoning effect. Next is the Ancient One, and once again, Ithaqua is going to kick in with his hypothermia condition unless we spend a focus. Every one of the characters has at least 1 focus token. Bob Jenkins had 2, so they're all going to spend a focus token to prevent that. Now what we know is the next 2 cards in the Mythos deck are going to be blue rumor cards. So we won't have to worry about Ithaqua's reckoning effect kicking in. So we won't have to be that attentive to our focus tokens. Next would be any active Mythos cards. There are none. Now we'll go to possessions and conditions. All right, first up is Sister Mary. She's got that hallucination condition. She has to test willpower, and if she fails, we'll have to flip the card. All right, as you can see, she has a willpower of 4, so we'll see if we can pass this. Here's the roll. And she's done it. She's got 3 successes there, so we have no problems with our hallucinations kicking in. The next character that has a reckoning effect would be Bob Jenkins with his righteous boon ability. All right, it says here during a reckoning effect you may flip this card. I guess we'll do it. And that says, that which does not kill us. The horrid creature wraps its foul tendril around your leg, pulling you into the dark. I'm not dying here, you shout, firing into the beast's flesh until it releases you. After escaping, you feel as though you could take on any threat. Discard any number of your conditions or improve 2 skills of your choice. Then discard this card. Well, we can improve 2 skills. That is awesome. So that card will be discarded. And I think he's going to improve both observation and willpower. So we'll give him +1 to will and +1 to observation. That is great. Next up is Joe Diamond, and he's got 2 cards that we'll have to check for reckoning effects. All right, Joe Diamond's got the markings of Isis, and that says test lore -1 and flip this card. All right, his lore is a 2. He gains 1 for the markings of Isis and 1 for the living link. So he's got a total of 4 dice. Let's see if he can pass this. And he's got 2 successes. All right, we'll flip the card and find out what the effect is. With 2 successes, it says the markings burn your flesh and tear at your mind. Lose a health and a sanity unless you discard the card. Well, I really like that card, so I'm going to keep it, and we're going to discard a health and sanity. It's going to move his health down to 5 and his sanity down to 3. It's kind of a risk, but I think that card is very valuable to us. So we'll replace that in position. Next is his living link condition. Your destiny awaits. Flip this card. Okay, let's see what it says. The remains in 118. Necromancers grew careless and resurrected a powerful wizard by mistake. This ancient, unidentified wizard has chosen you to be the vessel of its righteous wrath. Gain 1 spell and improve lore. Then flip the card. Excellent. All right, he gains the spell Poison Mist. It's a ritual. As an action, test lore +1. If you pass, discard monsters from your space with total toughness equal to or less than your test result. Then flip the card. All right, we'll give him that card. And then it says we can improve our lore. So our lore is improved by 1. It's great. Then it says flip the card. So it doesn't look like we can lose that condition. That's amazing. Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. The only way we can lose it is if you would gain a Bane condition, you can discard the card instead, but not on the condition on the back. That's very unusual. Usually it's a discard the card. But in this case, it says flip the card. Okay, so that's what we've got. All right, Wendy Adams does not have any items with reckoning effects. So we'll go back to the card and see what we continue on with. Okay, next up, we're going to spawn a gate. So we'll draw a token from the gate stack. And this time it's going into the Amazon. It's a red gate. All right, so the gate opens in the Amazon and a Shoggoth has come through. It has a reckoning effect. Let's take a look at its stats. During the reckoning phase, the monster will recover all of its health. Okay, it's a pretty tough one. It's got 4 toughness and above average horror. So we'll have to see what happens with that. All right. And finally, we have the event Strange Affliction. The flowers in your hotel have begun to wilt at your touch. The dogs in the street now whimper and cringe as you pass by. No matter how elegantly you dress, strangers look upon you as a leprous beggar. The lead investigator gains a blight condition. Oh no. All right, so Sister Mary has gained a blight condition. It says when you gain this card, discard 1 ally. She has no allies. During reckoning effects, the allies you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause. Flip this card. Okay. So that's going to complete the Mythos phase, and we'll move on now to a new round and another action phase. We can move the lead investigator token if we choose. I'm going to take a look at that. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to move the lead investigator token to Joe Diamond. We'll have him be the lead investigator for the coming turn. And we're ready to begin our next action phase. Now we know that the next 2 cards out of the Mythos deck are going to be rumor cards, so we won't have to worry about the reckoning effect of Ithaqua. And incidentally, the reason I chose Joe Diamond as our lead investigator is I'm planning on having him travel up to Greenland and see if he can solve that Exploring Hyperborea mystery card. We'll know whether he has solved it or not by the time that Bob Jenkins has moved to Arkham. Then he can decide whether he's going to take the Arkham encounter or the Expedition encounter. All right, Joe is in Arkham. He's going to begin with a rest action. It's going to allow him to recover a health and sanity. That moves his health up to 6 and sanity up to 4. Next, he's going to do a travel action. He'll take the sea path, and he's going to move up to Greenland. And he's going to encounter that mystery that's happening up there. Okay, that ends his 2 actions. We'll move on to Wendy Adams. All right, Wendy Adams is going to begin with a component action. And she's going to use her active action. It says gain a trinket asset from your choice from the reserve or discard. She's going to gain this card, trinket, Ritual Candles. You may discard this card to gain 5 to lore when resolving a spell effect, and as an action she can discard the card to gain a spell. So we'll give that to her. That's her first action. Her second action is going to be a travel action, and I'm going to have her move using the rail line to move into Shanghai. Next up is Sister Mary. Sister Mary is going to begin with using her component action of her active action. It says test will. For each success, you or another investigator on any space may discard a madness condition. We're going to see if we can get rid of her hallucinations. She has to do a willpower test, and her will is 4. All right, so let's see if she can pass this. She needs 1 success at least. Okay, here is the roll. She's failed. She has a 1, a 2, and 2 3s. Okay. I think for her next action, she's going to do a rest action. That's going to allow her to gain a health back, moving her up to 4. Her sanity's already full at 7. But this hallucinations condition says that when you perform a rest action, you may roll a die. On a 5 or 6, discard the card. So we'll see if we can get rid of it that way. Okay, here is her roll. Looking for a 5 or 6. She's done it. She's got a 6. That is great. We'll get rid of the hallucinations. That's great. All right, that finishes her 2 actions. And we'll move on now to Bob Jenkins in London. All right, Bob is in London. He's going to start out with a travel action. We're going to have him move from London to Arkham. And for his second action, he's going to do a focus action. We'll give him a focus token. That is his second. All right, that completes all of our actions. We'll move on now to our encounters, beginning with our lead investigator, Joe Diamond. All right, Joe Diamond is in Greenland, and he's going to attempt to solve this exploring Hyperborea mystery. And it says, as an encounter, an investigator on Space 9 may travel through the veil between worlds and explore the ancient continent of Hyperborea. He draws and resolves an exploring Hyperborea special event. All right, that's what we're going to do. All right, the card reads, on a distant hill by the sea, you glimpse a black tower. An eerie presence can be felt from the direction of the structure. You hesitantly approach the ancient 5-sided tower to discover its purpose. Test observation. All right, Joe Diamond has an observation level of 4. He also gains +1 for his Markings of Isis spell and +1 to all skills for his Living Link. So he'll be rolling a total of 6 dice. Okay, here is the roll of 6 dice. He's done it. He's got a 5 as a success. We're going to read the success portion of the card now. It says, inside the tower you find multiple levels, all crammed with old books and instruments of the arcane. Test lore -1. Well, Joe Diamond's lore currently is at 3. He's got his normal 2, and he has a +1 improvement token. He will also gain +1 to his skills for the Markings of Isis and +1 for his Living Link. So he's got a total of 5 minus the 1 for the test. He'll be rolling 4 dice. So let's roll 4 dice and see if he can pass this. I hope he can. Okay, here is the roll. He's failed. Oh boy. He has failed. The card says, if you fail, you become distracted and read for hours, improve lore, and gain a spell. If we pass it, he recognizes this as a living place for the wizard Eban. Place 1 Eldritch token on the active mystery. All right. Well, that's kind of strange because to solve the mystery, we need to have clue tokens on there. So I don't know what the addition of an Eldritch token would do to help that. It's kind of strange. Well, he has the ability to get a reroll if he chooses. He has a clue token, but I don't want to use that. So it says, if you fail, you become distracted and read for hours, improve lore, and gain a spell. So that's what's going to happen to Joe Diamond. So his lore now is improved to +2, putting it up to 4. Now he's going to gain a spell. And he gains the spell, Poison Mist. It's a ritual. As an action, test lore +1. If you pass, discard monsters from your space with total toughness equal to or less than your test result, and then flip the card. All right, we'll give that to Joe Diamond. So he has not solved the mystery yet. All right, next up is Wendy Adams. She's in Shanghai, China, and I think she'll take a Shanghai encounter. And her encounter reads, the librarian at St. John's University fears that a cult is trying to steal one of his rare books. You may spend 1 focus to look through his collection. If you spend the focus, you find the book and promise to keep it safe. Gain 1 old journal, unique asset, and improve lore. Well, unfortunately, she doesn't have any focus tokens, so we won't be able to take advantage of that. Her encounter is going to end. All right, next up is Sister Mary. She's in Tokyo. She's going to take a token encounter and attempt to close the gate in Tokyo. This time she travels to the Dreamlands. A student of the occult has gotten lost in the Dreamlands. The young man introduces himself as Edward Darby. He has a ritual for returning home, but he needs your help to interpret it. Test lore -1. Well, unfortunately, she has a lore of 2. So she's only going to get 1 die for the test. All right, here is the test roll. She's rolled a 6. That is beyond belief, and she's passed the test. We'll continue reading. It says his ritual works. Close the gate. Excellent. So we've closed the gate in Tokyo. Outstanding. We'll continue on, and it says, Darby's grateful wife wants to help you, but something about her fills you with dread. Test willpower -1. Sister Mary has a willpower of 4, so she'll be rolling 3 dice for the test. She does have a clue token available. Okay, here is the test roll. She's failed. All right. It says, if you fail, you cannot be near her, lose 2 sanity, and gain a paranoia condition. I'm wondering if I should spend that clue to do a reroll. That's a tough one. I think I'll do it. That's kind of a nasty thing to have. We'll spend the clue and try to re-roll this. We'll see what happens. It's only a 1 in 3 chance, though, but here's the roll. She's done it. She's got a 5. Okay, so then in this case it says, if you pass, the fear fades. Gain the Anseth weight, unique asset. All right. So she gains the ally Anseth weight, ally character. When you gain this card from the deck, gain a spell. Okay. She gains the spell Shroud of Shadow, glamour spell. During the encounter phase, you may choose an encounter as if there are no monsters on your space. During reckoning effects, we have to test lore -1 and then flip the card. The rest of Anseth's card says when a gate spawns, you may discard 2 spells to discard that gate and each monster on that space. That's pretty good. All right, that's going to complete the encounter phase for Sister Mary, and we'll move on now to Bob Jenkins. Okay, Bob Jenkins is in Arkham. Now we have a choice here. We can take the Arkham encounter, a generic city encounter, or the expedition. Now we haven't completed the mystery, so I guess it's possible that that encounter could help to advance the mystery. So I guess we'll try the expedition. The expedition reads, you descend into a series of tunnels hidden beneath Arkham's old cemetery. The stonework indicates these twisting passageways are as old as the city itself. You search the dark halls, looking for some indication of their purpose. Test observation. All right, Bob Jenkins currently has an observation of 3. He's got his normal 2 and a +1 improvement. So we'll make the roll. Jenkins has 2 focus tokens that he can use. Here is the roll. He's failed. He's got 2 2s and a 1. So I guess he's going to use one of his focus tokens, and he'll re-roll that. He'll try another roll on this dice. He's done it. He's got a 6. We'll read the success portion. It says, you find papers linking the city's founders to witchcraft. Gain an incantation spell. Okay, let's get an incantation spell. All right, he draws the incantation spell Storm of Spirits. When resolving a combat encounter, you may resolve a lore test in place of the strength test, using the same test modifier. If you do, flip the card. Okay. And we'll continue reading. The documents hint at a coming doom. Test lore -1. Well, unfortunately, lore is not Bob Jenkins' strength. He's only got a 2. So, lore -1 would be 1 die. Okay, let's see what we get here. 1 die. He's got a 1, so we can use our other focus token, I guess, would be a possibility. I guess he'll try it. He'll use a focus token to re-roll a die. Here's the roll. And he's rolled a 2. He's failed. All right. He has a clue token available. I think he'll try it. He's going to use his clue token and try a re-roll. See if we can get it. He's done it. He's got a 6. We'll continue reading. If you pass, advance the active mystery by 1. That is awesome. So we're going to advance the active mystery by 1. It means we're going to place another clue token on that card, and this mystery is going to be solved at the end of the Mythos phase. It says at the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to half the number of investigators, solve the mystery. Outstanding. All right, the expedition now indicates it's moving to the Himalayas, and we'll place it there. All right, that's going to complete our encounter phases. We'll move on to the Mythos phase. That's going to be resolved by Joe Diamond now. All right, the Mythos card is revealed to be Voodoo Curse. We're going to begin by spawning clues. In this case, we're going to be spawning 2 clues. Okay, our clues are revealed to be located in London and in C-Space 11. We'll place them accordingly. Next, we're instructed to place a rumor token in Space 6. All right, Space 6 is the southwestern U.S., and that's either Dallas or Houston or something, and that's where the rumor token will go. Next is the ongoing rumor, and is Voodoo Curse. A wax doll sits on a table next to your bed. Crude strips of fabric make it clear that the doll represents you, and a lock of your own hair is tied around the figure. Voodoo Curse, ongoing rumor. As an encounter, an investigator on Space 6 may attempt to undo the magic which binds him to the voodoo doll. He may spend clues equal to half the number of investigators to solve the rumor. During the Reckoning phase, an investigator that does not have a Bane condition gains a Bane condition. All right, so that is an active ongoing rumor in Space 6. Fortunately, we're fairly close by to that location. All right. So that is going to complete the round, and we're doing quite well. Now, at the conclusion of this Mythos phase, we are going to be able to complete our first mystery. All right, it says, at the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to half the investigators, solve the mystery. So we've got the 2 clues. We've solved this one, and we're going to draw our next mystery card and see what is up for us next. This time, our mystery is growing hunger. An unnatural hunger has begun to manifest. There have been disturbing reports of towns tearing themselves apart, the citizens feasting upon their fallen neighbors before turning on one another. When this card enters play, place an Eldritch token on each of the following spaces: 1, 5, 14, and 16. Okay. All right, so we're instructed to place Eldritch tokens on spaces 1, 5, 14, and 16. So we've got one at 1, another one at 5, another one at 14, and another one at 16. Okay, let's see what else this growing hunger card has to say. As an encounter, an investigator on a space containing an Eldritch token may confront the cannibals. A Wendigo monster ambushes him. If he defeats it, he may spend 2 clues to place that Eldritch token on this card. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are Eldritch tokens on this card equal to half the number of investigators, solve the mystery. All right, that's not too bad. So with that in mind, we currently have a voodoo curse that is ongoing. During reckoning phases, investigators that do not have Banes are going to gain a Bane, so we want to try to solve that. That is in Space 6. It's within the reach of Bob Jenkins. We know that the next Mythos card is going to be another ongoing rumor, so we'll have to see as to how bad that one's going to be, but we won't have to worry about Ithaqua's reckoning effect, so that'll give us a little flexibility. Joe Diamond has solved that first mystery in Space 9. Well, it really wasn't him, it was the expeditions that have solved it for him, but nonetheless, that first mystery card has been solved. And so I think I'm going to bring this video to a close, and we're going to continue on with a second video. So far we're doing quite well. I'll give you a look at each of the characters and their corresponding cards. And as we close out, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, and I hope to see you again for our next episode of Eldritch Horror versus Ithaqua. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the channel.